What's up, guys? Gary Cook here, and this is the first edition of the Indie Reivew. The point of this show is to go over all the great indie wrestling I have been watching all week long, give my feedback, point you guys to some great matches, and hopefully help you find some good wrestling outside of the mess that the WWE has been lately. With that said, if you've been watching the Diva Dives, I have been super high on Impact and the Knockouts and how well they're doing with their women over there. Even gone as far as to say at their last pay-per-view Rebellion that they had two matches that I would place above the historical, groundbreaking WrestleMania 35 main events. We have gone from that to Santina and James Elsworth levels of awful. And I'm talking the return of Disco Inferno and the heaping, steaming bag of crap they gave us this week on Impact. So let's hop on in and enjoy some great talk about MLW, Freelance Wrestling, and then let's cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of this week's Impact. So without further ado, let's dive on in. Alright, guys, let's talk wrestling. And we're going to start off with a promotion that I don't believe even has a women's division yet, and I definitely think they should get one. MLW, Major League Wrestling. I watched my first episode of their show this week just to check it out and see what it was like on Fight, as I was looking for something to fill up my Monday nights since I'm no longer watching Raw. And I really enjoyed it. I love the hybrid action of kind of the Lucha Libre American styles meshing. And I think there's a bunch of great female talent out there that could really be highlighted and brought to a style like that that would really set them apart from a lot of the other women's wrestling action that we see. But with that said, there is one woman on the show who stood out and really made the show that much better every time she was on screen. And that is Selena De La Renta. She is a manager and valet on the show. It looks like she kind of has her own stable going, but I've only watched one episode, so I don't really know all the inner workings yet, but I'm excited to kind of understand more of that as I watch. The show kicked off with her giving a promo, and it was a great promo. It got me curious about the matches that were coming up that night that they were talking about in it. They got me curious to kind of learn about what she had planned. She did a good job of drawing me in and make me want to know more. She reminds me, for those of you that watch WWE, as kind of like a hybrid version of Zelina Vega and Lana. She has a lot of the business attitude of Zelina Vega, but none of the bad tendency of stealing the spotlight from the person she represents so far. And a lot of Lana in the she is definitely going to catch your eye at ringside, and definitely is going to enhance any talent she's with, but doesn't have the bad tendency of trying to steal the show like Lana does. So I definitely felt like she was a good mixture of the two of them, kind of compiled into one. Where when the camera was on her, she was animated, she was engaging, and she made you curious to see what she was going to do, what she was going to say, and how she was going to interact, which was highly enjoyable. But she wasn't taking away from the action in the ring. She was always kind of guiding you back there by yelling at her competitor or praising her competitor in those moments instead of it being all about her. And she also wasn't injecting herself in the match like Zelina does at times. Whether it's successful or a failure, a lot of times I feel like Zelina has the problem of she becomes the crutch of Andrade's matches, where he either wins or loses because of actions she takes, especially since coming to the main roster. And I don't think that's a good look for the manager or slash valet talent to be in. And I didn't, at least in this episode, see any of that coming from Selena De La Renta, and that is awesome. I am excited to see more of her. She is definitely a hook that is going to keep me coming back to explore the MLW product, because I did enjoy her work, and we'll probably talk about her more here on the show. And if they ever get a women's division, I'll be excited to talk about that, I'm sure, as well. But if you're just looking for a good wrestling replacement on your Monday nights, I highly suggest checking out the MLW show. It's on Fight TV. It's free, so you can't beat that. And it was just a handful of really good wrestling matches with some interesting story points to kind of weave in between them and keep things going. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good show. So I highly recommend giving that one a watch when you have a chance. The next show I watched this week was Freelance Wrestling's Battle Royale. The whole show was pretty solid. This was one of my first or second times, I think, ever watching Freelance Wrestling. So I'm not a huge follower of theirs, but I have independent wrestling TV now, so I have a whole lot more access to what they're doing and what's going on over there. So I'm definitely probably going to check out more when it fits into my my weekly viewing schedule. But tonight I was watching because they had an awesome four-way dance to open the night up. It was Shazza McKenzie, Solo Darling, Jody Threat, and Laney Luck. I'm a big Shazza McKenzie fan. I enjoy her ring work. I enjoy her personality. I think she's a lot of fun to watch. A lot of fun to watch her engage with people. Solo Darling is always impressive to watch. She is just a beast in that ring and really deserves a bigger spotlight than she gets, I feel, at times. Jody Threat I wasn't as familiar with, but I enjoyed her in this match a lot. She definitely had some good spots in that we'll talk about here that definitely has me looking to learn and see more of her work. And who doesn't love Laney Luck? The unicorn power is with us all. And you can't help but have a party when Laney Luck is in the ring. She's just fun. It was a really high-paced match. Very hard hitting at times. There was a nice spot where Solo dropped Shazza right on the ring apron. That looked very painful. That was followed up by Jody coming out and diving into both of them, followed by Laney jumping out to just splatter all of them across the floor. It was just constant action in the match, which is really nice to see. There wasn't a lot of points where they were just kind of all laying around the outside of the ring, which can sometimes happen in Fatal 4-Ways. There was always a lot of group action going on, a lot of back and forth, a lot of people switching between opponents and things like that. So it was a lot of fun to watch. They definitely had good pacing to the whole match. It didn't feel like it dragged on at any points. For a opening match, it definitely set the bar and got the crowd excited. I must say that I really love watching Shazza's stunner that she does off the ropes, where she kind of lands in her split at the bottom after doing it. It's a really cool visual when she does it. It's a cool take on the stunner, adding the split and everything coming off the rope. So it makes it a much more theatrical version of it that really kind of captures your eye when you see it happen. And the first time you see it, you're like, wow, that's a cool looking move. So I definitely enjoy seeing that. She busted it out in this match on Laney Luck, but it was late in the match and everybody was pretty well beat up, so she wasn't able to go for any kind of cover off of it. Instead, when she was in her split, she got met by a dropkick to the face by Jody. But the match was to end when Laney Luck hit her cutter from the top rope on Jody for the 3 count. It was a really solid match. It's exactly the type of match you would expect from this grouping of girls. I really have not seen a match with Shazza, Solo, and Laney Luck that I haven't enjoyed. I'm sure there are some out there, so I'm not saying they're infallible. I'm just saying recently I can't think of any off the top of my head that I went, they all have really good chemistry together, and Jody had good chemistry with them as well. It was a great way. It set up the show well. It set up for what was a good rest of the show for the parts I did get to watch, as I was skipping around between a bunch of things because we had 3 shows all happening Friday night. So I got a little kind of channel surfing here between all of these shows at different points. But this is a really solid match. If you have not checked it out and you're looking for a good women's match, I would definitely suggest hopping on your independent wrestling TV account or setting one up and going and giving a look to Freelance Wrestling's Battle Royal show. And it's the first match of the night, and it's a good match, a very solid women's match. It's a great introduction to any of these 4 women if you haven't seen them before, and I would highly recommend it. So those were the only 2 shows this week that I had that were from smaller promotions that don't have a huge women's roster at this point, or kind of just include women's matches where they can. Rise happened this weekend as well, but that's getting its own show just because we would be here for a very long time if I included a full iPay-per-view recap on top of everything else that happened on the independent circuits this week that I saw. So there will be a full Rise review coming for Luminous this weekend. A lot of awesome stuff happened there. So be on the lookout for that. That should be coming out either Sunday or Monday. I forget when that video is scheduled to go live. But the big Friday night wrestling for me is Impact. I love the Knockouts. I think they have one of the best women's groups assembled there out of pretty much anywhere else right now. That Knockout division is stacked with talent. But this week was a letdown, man. A big letdown. So they were advertising this Battle Royale for the Knockouts, and I was really excited. I thought this was going to be a great way for them to highlight and showcase the women they have there, maybe the women they're interested in hiring, and just make it a real celebration of knockout wrestling. And that's how it started out, and that's how I went into the match feeling, and it seemed like that's how everybody went into the match feeling. Everybody seemed pretty excited to see this match because it had all of our favorite knockouts in there. It had a lot of people from the indies that we all want to see get bigger and get more exposure. And there were a lot of things they could have done with the Battle Royale to really build up storylines, because they have at Rebellion, they wrapped up the Tessa Gail Kim, so Tessa needs a new story. Taya and Jordan have kind of closed the chapter there, but there's still more story that could be told. And then in the Demon Collar match happening on Impact, that is heading towards a conclusion or final chapter of the Rosemary Sue Young feud. So you had a lot of knockouts that are looking for some new stories. We had the Kiera Hogan heel turn tease that happened last week that I thought might have gotten played up in here some. So there was a lot of avenues this could have gone. And the route they went was the worst possible choice ever. But before we get to that, let's cover who some of the special guests were that I would love to see more of on Impact. They had Ashley Vox from Team C-Star, and I would love if they brought in Team C-Star and restarted the women's tag division there, because there are so many good women's tag teams out right now, and the WWE has butchered that so much that I would just love to see a tag team division done right, and I feel like Impact could do that with how well they've done a lot of the other knockout stuff. Solo Darling was there, and as I just talked about earlier, she's always solid. I would love to see Solo come in. I think her and Jordan would be a killer match to see for a feud over a belt in the future. The two of them they would put on just a clinic of just power wrestling, and it would be magnifique. And then the other kind of indie superstar I recognized in there was Tasha Steelz, who would be another awesome talent to kind of see transition and get more of a spotlight than she currently is getting. So that was pretty cool to see all of them. On On the plus side, we did get to see all of the women kind of highlight and get their moment to shine in the match. So there was that, which was nice to see. Even the girls that weren't signed to Impact, they still got a little bit of highlighting here and there and got a few good spots into their own. So I thought that was nice to see that there was a good flow to a battle royal and a lot of action and a lot of chances for the women to kind of show off what they could do. Now, the problem came right at the start, and I kind of hoped it was just a one-off thing, it was going to end, but then it just came back at the end and just made everything worse. So Disco comes out and he cuts a promo. If you saw the Disco promo he cut on Scarlett before that WrestleMania pay-per-view they did, United We Stand, it was almost the exact same promo word for word. The only difference was, instead of targeting just Scarlett, he targeted the woman as a whole. So he came out, he cut his promo, nobody cared. Reports are that the crowd there was chanting "shut the F up" at him the entire time, and they had to do some fancy editing to get that out of the final version so that they could air it on television and not get in trouble. And I get the argument people are saying that they're only doing this for heat, but it's unimaginative, it's unoriginal, and it's been done to death at this point. And Disco Inferno doesn't have heat. He has go-home heat. He has X-Pac heat. Disco Inferno hasn't been somebody that people cared about ever. There's not a single moment in his career I can think of where I went, let me go out there and watch this wrestling event because it has Disco Inferno on it. That's never happened. It's never gonna happen. This is just, I don't know why they're doing this. It's ridiculous. So anyway, he cuts this promo. Nobody cared. Nobody wanted to hear it. He slides in the ring. The girls all beat him up. He slides out of the ring, and he goes on commentary to just annoy the crap out of us the rest of the time. And the match progresses. And I kind of forgot about the whole Disco getting in the ring thing at the beginning because I enjoyed the match. Then he gets back in the ring and throws Tessa out of the ring. And he gets declared the winner. Now, before he threw Tessa out, it was down to Tessa, Kiera Hogan, and Scarlett Bordeaux. Now, I was hoping that they were going to eliminate Tessa because she doesn't need any making, and let Scarlett or Kiera get this and let it be a building block for them because they both are on that cusp and could have used a big push here of something to hang over the head of the other knockouts to really elevate them in that division. I would have been cool seeing Kiera do something very heelish to get the win. Or I would have been fine with Scarlett getting the win as well and kind of being able to attack that she's beat the men and now she's beaten all the women. Why is she not considered the top knockout? There were great story opportunities for either of them. Even Tessa winning, there were great stories for her to then set her sights on Tyra Valkyrie and be like, look, I'm the top girl here. I just beat every other knockout in the company and I want my belt back. That would have been fine. But what we got was Disco throwing Tessa out and them now building towards a Tessa versus Disco Inferno feud. Why? Who wants this? Who? Who goes and says, this is what we need in 2019? Disco Inferno feuding with the knockouts. This is literally the exact same story that they did with Scarlett Bordeaux versus Disco Inferno for United We Stand. And now they're doing it instead of Scarlett with Tessa and Disco saying all the exact same crap he said then. This is Santina all over again. This is James Elsworth all over again. This is pure WWE crap that has everybody hating their women's division at times. This is Impact for whatever reason. I don't know if somebody put a curse on Impact. I don't know if it's just the new management thought nobody would notice it. But for some reason, Impact is desperate to be WWE. When they were TNA, They were desperate to be WWE, and now in this moment here, they're copying WWE again. It's amazing how many times one company can make the same mistake over and over and over again. Trying to be WWE never works out. And trying to copy the angles that the WWE got blasted for isn't going to improve here. Just because Disco and Tessa can have a match, which you never really got in the WWE Santina and the Divas division, doesn't make it better. Just because we're all going to watch Tessa kick his butt at some pay-per-view doesn't make it better. Honestly, I don't even want to have to watch and report on Tessa vs. Disco. That just sounds insanely dull. Because Disco has never been interesting. He wasn't interesting in WCW. He wasn't interesting in TNA. He's not interesting on his podcast. He's not interesting in any shoot interview I've ever seen of his. He's a character nobody cares about. He was the laughingstock of WCW for what wrestling shouldn't be. And here he is winning a Knockouts Battle Royal. We've come to expect better from you, Impact. We expect a whole lot better. Hopefully, the backlash that I've been seeing online is loud enough and strong enough for you to double back and just pretend this never happened, to not build any stories off of it, and just walk away. That's the best you can do right now, is walk away and don't come back for this. This is a disaster waiting to happen. And this awful decision took away from the great match that followed it, because we were all in shock of how incredibly stupid you are for booking this. It blows my mind why people think playing the bigoted, sexist old man card is going to get you good heel heat. It hasn't worked in WWE. It hasn't worked anywhere ever that I can think of where people went, this is a really innovative and good story. No, this is Disco Inferno saying the same crap he's been saying for years, and nobody likes him for it. Nobody cares that he's going to lose to Tessa. Nobody cares because Disco doesn't matter. He's not valuable. He doesn't bring anything to the table. This is beyond dumb, Impact, and I hope you fix it. I hope you sit down and realize that putting Tessa in a feud with Disco doesn't build Tessa. It only brings her down to Disco's level, and nobody needs to be at Disco's level but Disco. Even the match with Scarlett, it was an okay match, but it was still a throwaway match because that's all Disco is capable of having. This isn't like we're going, oh wow, we're going to get Tessa versus Seth Rollins. It's going to be this epic throwdown match where we have this great worker against this great worker, and they're going to blow us away. Disco Inferno has never gotten past Curtain Jerker in his life. Disco Inferno has never had a match that people went, wow, it's believable that Disco Inferno won. He's only ever won on loopholes and for stupid reasons. Even when he was the cruiserweight in WCW, nobody believed Disco Inferno should win or could win because nobody believes he's a threat. Everybody just, if you look at him, he doesn't even look like he belongs in the same ring as Tessa. Tessa just looks like she should be able to snap Disco Inferno in half and toss him aside. There's nothing in Disco's body that allows him to have a good match. And it's so infuriating that you're forcing this down everybody's throats and acting like this is somehow going to be good. It's not. So after this match, we had Rosemary versus Su Yung in the Demon Collar match. I was excited for this match, but this match suffered from everything that happened before it because the crowd wasn't. It took the crowd forever to get into it. It took the people at home to get into it because while this match was going on for a good chunk of it, everybody was still upset about the disco stuff. And that whole entire botchery of a match lowered how good this match could have been because we were all still trying to get the bad taste of Disco Inferno out of our mouths. And that's a shame. The match itself, though, going back and watching it again, it was very brutal, as it should have been. They found some cool uses for the chain. At one point, Su Yung was being basically choked on the corner post and kind of lifted off of her feet by Rosemary, so she was being hung and choked. Rosemary is using the chain very well to whip Rosemary into barricades, into the ring apron, into posts. For a lot of the early match, Su Yung had the advantage and was just giving Rosemary the beatdown. At some point, Su Yung managed to escape her collar, which looked like was going to give her the advantage as she rebounded out and went for the red mist. But Rosemary saw it coming, ducked, and the mist missed. And Su Yung got hit with the red mist in the face, followed up by a spear, and then got dropped. And Rosemary reapplied the collar and dragged her away. I mean, it was a very brutal match. The chain was being incorporated into their different moves. Lots of submission moves using it. A lot of interesting drops and stuff with it. A lot of time spent out of the ring as well. It was a very brutal match. We saw Rosemary add a lot of submission moves, which was cool to see. And a lot of them were very creative, using the ring ropes along with the chain to apply them to Su Yung. So that was very cool to see. The match was everything you would want from these two, but I feel like my enthusiasm for it was just hindered because it took me so long to get into it because I was still trying to process the awfulness I just saw. And that's a shame that such a good match was overshadowed by the controversy of the match before it. And I feel like this match isn't going to get the love it deserves for a while because everybody's still trying to get past the Disco Inferno becoming Santina victor in the Battle Royal. I am curious, though, to see where this goes, as it was a winner takes all was the stipulation. So technically, I guess Su Yung belongs to Rosemary now. So I don't know if this ends the feud or it's just kind of closing the chapter for now. What I would like to see is Rosemary and Su Yung kind of become the dark, twisted heels of the Knockout division. And I'd like to see the two of them terrorizing the other Knockouts with their eyes set on Taya Valkyrie and the Knockouts Championship, with Rosemary using Su Yung as kind of like her vicious pet of sorts for the time being. Which could then lead to another feud between them in the future. I think this sets them up that they could both really take a pretty dark turn and go very heel here now that there is no more Bunny for Rosemary, and she's now going to have Su Yung under her command, apparently. I think there's a lot of really cool ways they could go with that, of setting them up as kind of like a Undertaker dark ministry heel type group that can just do awful things to the other Knockouts and kind of force the other Knockouts to maybe band together to stop them, or just let them kind of run wild and be this twisted, insane grouping that just kind of does awful things. And I feel like having a pair of them built up into these dark heels would be a much better story for turning Tessa babyface, of kind of becoming the defender of the other Knockouts, and get her that babyface climb that way, instead of devaluing what she brings to the company by putting her in here at Disco Inferno, as I feel like that doesn't give her any shine. It just pulls her down, where had she been put into a feud with Rosemary and Su Yung, who are very established veterans of the Knockout division and are very respected by the fans and do such great character work that they wouldn't have trouble becoming the heels in the situation, would have been a real clash of titans for Impact to build off of. But that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Leave some comments, leave some feedbacks, hit me up on Twitter, tell me if I'm wrong, right. I'd love to hear the good, the bad, and your cries of outrage. What did you guys think about Impact this week? What did you guys think about Freelance Wrestling? Have you guys watched Freelance Wrestling MLW? Let me know. what I should be checking out as I kind of get to know them and go through some of their back catalog. I'd love to hear that as well. But this has been our first ever Indie Review, our first ever podcast that's both on YouTube and on podcasting distribution sites all over the internet. So be sure to subscribe on whatever your preferred platform is and stay up to date on all of women's wrestling right here with us at Divas Unleashed. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time for the Rise Luminous review. Have a good one.